The sealed hearing ended with Adrian Cross confessing to bribery, except Elias Mercer had watched his lips and knew the voice came from somewhere else. "I accepted payments in exchange for favorable charging decisions," Adrian's familiar baritone said as thunder shook the windows. Elias's fingers struck the stenotope keys on reflex while his gaze snapped to the lectern. Adrian turned toward the sound, one hand already raised in objection. His mouth had been closed. "I did not say that," Adrian said, and this time Elias saw every syllable form. Rain combed the tall windows of Bellwether's oldest courtroom, laying watery shadows across the sealed chamber. Judge Miriam Vale sat erect above them, silver blonde hair untouched by the storm, pale eyes moving from Adrian to Elias. At the side door, Deputy Court Administrator Nolan Pike stood in his gray office jacket, courthouse identification swinging against his blue shirt. He had locked the room 10 minutes earlier under Vale's order. No clerk, bailiff, or public observer was present. The other voice continued from somewhere near Adrian's shoulder. "Those payments influenced my judgment. I concealed them from the court." Its volume was intimate, almost ashamed, yet it carried none of the chamber's long wooden echo. Each phrase reached Elias dry and close, as if spoken inches from his ear, while Adrian's actual denial rolled naturally beneath the vaulted ceiling. Worse, the confession paused after payments, with the clean, patient interval of a courtroom advocate waiting for a judge to finish writing. "Stop the hearing," Adrian said. He stepped back from the lectern and showed both empty hands. "Your Honor, an audio source is being played in this room." Vale's gavel struck once. "Mr. Cross, you will remain where you are." Elias forced his fingers to stop. On the narrow paper ribbon, the two voices occupied the same seconds: the alleged admission and Adrian's immediate objection. He marked the disputed passage with his uncertainty notation, then wrote what his eyes had established. Speaker not visually confirmed. It was an observation, not a conclusion. His pulse had accelerated, but his record remained exact. The voice delivered one final sentence: "I knew the arrangement was unlawful." A faint inhale preceded new, identical in shape and duration to the inhale before those. Not similar, identical. Elias had spent 9 years distinguishing overlapping speakers, swallowed endings, regional vowels, and the tiny timing habits by which one person interrupted another. Human beings repeated words. They did not reproduce the same breath with mechanical precision. Silence returned so abruptly that the rain seemed to rush into the room. Vale looked down at Elias. "Read back the admission." Elias kept his hands resting lightly beside the keys. "I can read the words captured by my machine, Your Honor. I cannot attribute them to Mr. Cross." "You heard his voice." "I heard a voice resembling his. I did not observe him speaking, and the acoustic character changed between that voice and his live objection." Pike shifted beside the door. The movement was small, but the plastic edge of his identification card clicked against a metal zipper. Adrian heard it too. His gray-blue eyes flicked toward Pike and then returned to Elias. He did not ask Elias to defend him. That restraint steadied Elias more than reassurance would have. Vale's expression hardened. "This is a sealed corruption hearing, Mr. Mercer, not an acoustic seminar. Prepare the transcript, certify it, and deliver it to my chambers before you leave the building." "Certification confirms that the transcript is a true and accurate record of the proceeding," Elias said. "I can certify the captured language only with the attribution marked unresolved." "You are refusing a direct order?" "I am declining to certify a fact I could not verify." Instead, he searched the authenticated transcript archive for unusual phrase clusters. "Favorable charging decisions" appeared in a procurement fraud argument from 4 years earlier. Adrian had said, "The defendant sought favorable charging decisions," followed by a pause while the court interrupted him. In the sealed chamber, that interruption had become the unnatural gap after payments. Concealed them from the court came from an unrelated asset forfeiture hearing 2 years later. The archived transcript showed Adrian answering a question after a recess. Elias checked the synchronized audio index available to certified staff. The phrase began with the same soft inhale he had heard twice that evening. The final sentence came from a judicial conduct petition only 8 months old. He knew the arrangement was unlawful. Remove the first consonant from he, tighten the space before knew, and Adrian appeared to say, "I knew." 3 authentic proceedings. 3 different rooms. 1 manufactured admission, still his. He selected probable evidence fabrication, attached the preserved records, and wrote 1 concise finding. The alleged confession contains phrases traceable to 3 unrelated archived proceedings, combined with repeated breath and pause characteristics inconsistent with continuous live speech. Visual observation and room acoustics do not support attribution to Adrian Cross. At 12:17 a.m., Elias signed the disclosure under his own credentials and submitted it to the Independent Ethics Office. The confirmation number appeared on screen as the courthouse lights flickered again. Somewhere beyond the transcript room wall, a door closed softly, metal-framed glasses. Under Mara's custody protocol, she swept the sealed courtroom without removing a screw. Behind perforated carved molding, her detector found ultrasonic energy from a compact parametric array disguised as part of the aging sound system. High-frequency carriers could project audible sound along a narrow path. Ruth positioned calibrated microphones while Elias directed the geometry from memory. "Move the target stand 6 inches left." My chair had been shifted around the leaking ceiling tile. There, a test tone became clear. 2 feet away, it dissolved into ventilation noise. The beam ended exactly where Elias's head had been during the hearing. Adrian's backward step had carried him through its edge, explaining the pressure change in his left ear. The device had made the fabricated voice seem close to the lectern while feeding almost none of it into the room. Vindication steadied Elias until Mara's phone rang. She listened, her face hardening, then handed Ruth a sealed copy of the court's official recording. Ruth played the disputed interval. Rain struck the windows. Veil sealed the record. Adrian objected. There was no confession, not even a faint trace under the room tone. Judge Vale appeared in the doorway before the file ended, her silver blonde bob immaculate above her robes. "So the only record of these supposed words is Mr. Mercer's transcript." "My contemporaneous stenotype notes," Elias said. Notes he refused to certify. Notes supporting a prosecutor with whom he had spent hours in private consultation. "Every contact was authorized and documented," Mara said. Vale ignored her. "Or Mr. Mercer invented a sensational accusation after misunderstanding silence." Adrian stepped forward, stopping before Mara's evidence boundary. "Direct allegations concerning me to my counsel. Mr. Mercer speaks for his own work." Vale's pale eyes fixed on Elias. "Then he should consider whether accusing court officers is safer than admitting error." The threat was soft enough to sound paternal on official microphones. Elias felt the institution's old pressure, the expectation that an Omega's precision remained valuable only while obedient. He studied the narrow line from the concealed array to his former chair. "The clean recording is consistent with a directional source," he said. "It does not disprove what I heard. It explains why I was selected to hear it." Mara resealed the chamber and escorted Vale out, yet the recording spread through internal channels by afternoon. Elias's access was restricted, reporters gathered outside, and an anonymous complaint accused him of falsifying a transcript to protect Adrian. The trap was larger than a false confession. The recovered cache held no playable confession, but its waveform thumbnails showed 17 separate clips arranged along one timeline. Elias recognized the unequal gaps immediately. The interrupted pause from Judge Orman's courtroom, the held breath before favorable, and the half-second absence where another speaker's objection had been cut away. Against a side wall, Mara found a compact parametric speaker matching the concealed courtroom array. Its mounting bracket bore fresh scratches. Beside it, strips of black tape crossed the dusty floor in measured intervals, each labeled with angles and distances. The final line ended at a wooden chair positioned beneath a chalk notation: seated ear height. "That height is mine," Elias said. Ruth measured it. "Within a centimeter." A folder in the workstation cabinet contained photographs of the sealed chamber taken during sealing repairs. Elias' stenographer chair had been marked with a red calibration point. One photograph showed Nolan Pike's gray-jacketed shoulder reflected in the darkened gallery glass, his courthouse lanyard hanging forward as he leaned behind the carved molding. Mara sealed the folder. "No one calls this proof of authorship yet. It proves access, preparation, and a test geometry. Permission to demonstrate the fabrication live." Permission was granted, and within 12 minutes, the commission's own stenographer heard Adrian Cross confess to bribery, while every microphone around her registered little more than ventilation and rain. Mara broke the seal on the recovered speaker's evidence case. Ruth verified its serial number aloud, then connected it through an isolated playback unit containing forensic copies of the 17 source fragments. No one touched the device except under Mara's direction. Elias stood beside a measured reconstruction of the sealed chamber. Speaker concealed behind a carved panel, witness lectern at Adrian's former position, stenographer's chair placed at the exact recorded angle. "The beam widens with distance," he explained. "At this range, moving the listener 20 inches changes the result." The commission chair asked its stenographer, Ms. Dalka, to sit at the target point. 2 calibrated microphones flanked her, one less than 3 feet away. Ruth began playback. Ms. Dalka's face changed at once. Her fingers struck the keys as Adrian's familiar voice reached her. "I accepted payment in exchange for directing the inquiry away from protected parties." The gallery heard only a thin, insect-like vibration. On the monitoring display, the microphones showed almost nothing. "Please move to the adjacent chair," Elias said. Ms. Dalka shifted 2 feet left. Ruth played the same file. This time the confession vanished for her too. She removed her headset, visibly unsettled. "At the first chair, I would have sworn the voice came from the lectern." "That is what the geometry makes the brain conclude," Elias said. "The target sees a speaker and hears that speaker's voice from the same direction. But Mr. Cross was never the source." His closed lips were the first inconsistency. Pike's credentials had accessed all 3 recordings. Each checkout bore Vale's electronic authorization. The speaker's serial number matched an equipment invoice routed through a courthouse preservation account, then delivered to the abandoned radio theater. Calibration photographs recovered from Pike's workstation showed Elias's chair measured from the wall molding. Vale stood. "Administrative authorization does not establish knowledge of misuse. Mr. Pike managed hundreds of preservation requests." Mara answered before Elias could. "The theater project file was created under his account. Its revision history names Judge Vale as approving reviewer. A message attached to version 6 says, 'Mercer must hear it cleanly enough to commit.' The next version narrows the beam by 3 degrees. For the first time, Vale's pale eyes lost their certainty. "That line is being stripped of context." Pike looked at the demonstration chair, then at Elias. "The context was his transcript." Vale turned on him. "Do not speculate!" "I'm done carrying your words as if they were mine." Pike's hands shook against the table. She said the room system had to stay clean. Mercer was trusted, meticulous. If he certified that Cross confessed, the transcript would be treated as neutral evidence, not an accusation from someone Cross was investigating. The chair warned Pike of his right to counsel. Pike swallowed and asked to speak with his attorney. Before he was escorted from the room, he said one thing more. Vale wanted Cross removed before he reached the Bellwether redevelopment accounts. Suspension, recusal, indictment, it didn't matter. Once the certified transcript existed, every path led away from her. Silence settled differently after that. It was no longer the silence used to isolate Elias. It belonged to an institution discovering that its own procedures had been turned into a weapon. Adrian remained in the gallery, broad shoulders held rigid beneath his dark suit. He did not smile or approach. When Elias met his gray-blue eyes, Adrian placed one open hand over the other on the rail, a quiet promise to wait until the evidence, not relief. The rain had stopped by dawn. Elias emerged carrying his immaculate stenotype case, his restored badge inside his charcoal waistcoat rather than displayed for the cameras. Adrian waited below in a dark tailored suit, polished shoes bright against the wet stone. He let Elias cross the distance between them. "The case is secure," Elias said. "It is." Adrian's expression softened. "And you are no longer assigned to any proceeding involving me. I checked before coming because I wanted the next question to belong only to us." Elias felt the last week's strain loosen, not vanish. "Then ask it." "Dinner with me tonight. A real first date. Somewhere without archive audio, ethics counsel, or directional speakers." "Somewhere quiet?" Elias asked. Adrian's mouth curved. "Quiet in the ordinary way." "Yes." Elias stepped closer. "And for the record, that answer requires no uncertainty notation." Adrian laughed, warm and startled, but still did not touch him until Elias offered his hand. They descended the steps together in full morning